Welcome to Honestly Reddit, and today we'll be talking about your favorite driller, Drill Sergeant.
Drill Sergeant as a character particularly isn't someone that I really cared for back in Sprout's Adventure, but I have been seeing comments of him, and he's been perking my curiosity for a bit, so today we'll be taking a look at his overall gameplay and design to really see if Drill Sergeant was honestly ever any good. Now before we get into the actual gameplay of Drill Sergeant, let me give you his lore. Drill Sergeant is an arcane artifact that was buried for thousands of years, but luckily the land shark named Terrafin was just kinda digging around in dirt and magically was able to find him.
Now Terrafin, with Drill Sergeant in hand, took him to Master Eon, where Master Eon knew a couple of phrases that brought him back to life. And by arcane law, Drill Sergeant now has to serve Terrafin for the rest of his life. Terrafin didn't really like this idea, so as his grand order, he told Drill Sergeant just to stop. And with Drill Sergeant now not really having any type of robot pals to kind of hang out with, Eon suggests that he signs up as a Skylander, and since he has nothing else better to do, yeah, he decides to go with it. Another thing I like to say before we jump into the action is that if you see yourself watching these videos often and you enjoy them, subscribing will help me out the most, and liking, that would also be pretty cool too. Another thing also is that I like to pick Skylanders off the comments, so if you guys want to suggest any in the comments, I won't stop you. Now, let's go take a look at Drill Sergeant and see what those drills can really do. Starting us off, we have the Bulldoze Charge and Drill Rocket. Drill Sergeant starting off is honestly somewhat weird. He's a projectile user that has limited ammo in a sense that makes him play quite awkwardly. Now, I'm not saying this just to say that Drill Sergeant's bad in the beginning, because I surely don't think so, but you definitely have to play him differently comparatively to other projectile users. The reason why is that anytime you shoot out a drill from Drill Sergeant, you have to wait for it to come back. And this leads for pretty wonky gameplay in the sense that you can't just spam it. It's not like Trigger Happy where you can go Trigger Happy. You have to wait a little bit. And if you don't wait, he'll start humping the air, and I don't think anybody really wants to see that. But if you're a freak and you do want to see that, there is some benefits to it. If you're up close to enemies, you can hit them with it, and if you actually are up close to enemies, even with your drills, you can still smack them. Now, I don't highly suggest this. It's weaker than just shooting your normal projectile, so trying to stay away as far as you can is normally the best play, but Drill Sergeant does have another thing up his sleeves, which is a Drill Charge. The Drill Charge is practically Drill's best friend. This is a move that I really enjoy for multiple reasons. For one, it makes enemies practically useless. Anytime you push them, they can't hit you, so you just kind of stare into their eyes as they fall off to a deep pit, or you just push them around because why not? Fuck it, right? Another reason too is that it actually reloads your drills. The drills do take a little bit to come back, and so just popping one of those while you're in front of an enemy doesn't hurt you any bit, tickles the enemy a little bit, and brings back your drills. It's just all in one favor, and it's so good because of it. And the last thing that's to it too is that obviously it makes you faster. Drill Sergeant isn't the slowest guy, but obviously just having a little bit more speed to get away from things is always nice. Overall, with these two moves, I've seen fights last a while, especially if there's more projectile based users, just because you can't really hit a big group of them, but he still can hold his own and kill pretty quickly if you got a bunch of ledges around. First upgrades we get is going to be Speedy Recovery and Dozer Endurance. Both of these are fairly nice. For the first one, Speedy Recovery, it allows us to get our drills way quicker, which is very nice for a Drill Sergeant because I do personally believe the beginning one is a little too long of a wait, but now with this, we can definitely hit a lot more. Then for Dozer Endurance, I personally find pretty good. Keeping them for longer, I guess, is nice. The only thing though is that when I use the drill, I don't really use it for damage, so holding them over a long time isn't really what I like. I think getting some speed would be pretty cool, but still, great upgrade. Then for our last upgrades, we have Power Charge and Auto Blaster. These are going to be the first two kind of meh upgrades that we're going to get. Power Charge increases the damage of our charge, which, like I told you before, I don't really use for damage, and neither do I really think you really should, because for big enemies, you can't really do it consistently. Then for small enemies, I guess it would make more sense to do it like against champions and stuff, but it's not like you really even need the damage, and mainly other just normal enemies. The damage output is just not that great. Then just add a little bit of salt to the wound. The normal damage we did before the upgrade was 14, but now we're doing 17. Personally, I don't really like when they do little jumps like these, so it just really isn't that crazy of an upgrade for me. Personally, if the damage went up to 20, then we could start talking, but since it's only doing 17, it's really just not that big of an upgrade. And speaking about doing a little bit of damage, here comes the Auto Blaster, our third special move that we can now perform. The Auto Blaster is a move where when you hold down triangle, you're allowed to just kind of shoot these pebbles at enemies that do 4 damage. Now, it is automatic, like it says in the name. You don't really have to aim anything, it just kind of moves on its own and fires. But personally, I don't really see why this is really needed. Obviously, Sprout's Adventure was a different game before you could jump and do other types of shit. But at the same time, I really still don't know why this would be needed. needed anyways. My biggest gripe with it is that, again, you have to hold down triangle, which for, again, most people, holding down the middle button and then trying to press other buttons at the same time isn't too easy. And just for the damage output to be 4 damage, it just really doesn't seem worth it, especially for a hand cramp. The only benefit that I can give it is that for chompies and smaller enemies, yeah, I guess it could be useful, because again, our drills do come back somewhat slow. So just having something that could kill smaller things and not have to waste precious resources, I guess is good. But overall, still just isn't great at all unless you're just a really talented individual with your hands. Now we get to move on to the Battle Dozer path, where we have a View 2 Drill and DX3000 Drill Detonator. These are some genuinely awesome upgrades to get for Drill Sergeant. The first one allowing us to do more damage with our drills, which gives them that pretty cool look with them, making our drills now do 55 damage instead of the 47 before, giving them a lot more kill power, which is nice, because again, drills are pretty limited here. But the bigger thing here is the 3000 detonator shit. The detonator allows us to actually explode enemies now with our drills. Now that might sound kind of stupid because, you know, the drills already exploded before, but what I mean by that is that enemies now get to explode with other enemies. It hits multiple. This is something I swear Drill Sergeant could do just from the beginning back in my day, but apparently not. Apparently the drill only hit one target and, you know, you couldn't hit any others. This is absolutely a fantastic thing to have for Drill Sergeant, especially for his projectiles. With them being so limited, it's definitely nice to have a way to hit multiple enemies with just one drill, and it really helps Drill Sergeant in his kill potential. Then the last upgrade on this path is Merv Drill Rockets. These are something that I don't really know what to put into words because I don't really think they're that beneficial. The main premise of it is that when the rocket is far away from an enemy and it ends up not reaching them in time, they'll end up splitting into a bunch of miniature rockets. These tiny rockets doing 27 damage have a wider spread to hit enemies, but don't do as much damage. Now, I really don't know to say if they're good or bad. I think they're just kind of around the middle. The reason being is that you don't really see them often, just because just how Drill Sergeant plays, you're kind of always up in people's faces. And a thing that I really don't like about them is that they kind of tend to slow down right after they openly split. But at the same time, I don't think they're bad just because they're doing less damage. They're truly just on a league on their own. But I can definitely say they're definitely not as impactful as the last two. Now we go on to the Mega Dozer path, where we have Speed Dozer Boost and Hailstorm. Even though these are fairly simple upgrades, I do think they're actually quite nice. The first one allows us to move faster while we're charging, which is something that I asked for in the beginning, so hey, thank you, game. And it's definitely fun, and it's definitely very noticeable when using it. There's something about just being faster with it, just makes it feel nicer. And speaking about faster, our Auto Blaster also shoots more pebbles now. Now the damage is still the same, and its usefulness is still practically the same, but I would be lying if I said that this doesn't feel like that much of an upgrade. I actually do kind of like what it does for the move. The reason being is that if you're able to hold down triangle and also press the dash button at the same time, you're doing 17 plus 4, which makes it 21 damage per enemy you're just kind of sliding around. Now let's say you're in an area that has no ledges, that is actually pretty sizable damage if you're just able to kind of wipe them across the floor. Then when it comes to killing chompies, it's a lot quicker and easier. Overall, it's still very useless, and I still don't really suggest it if, again, you're pretty prone to hand cramps. But if you got some fancy controller like I do, where I have back paddles and you're able to hold down that button without, you know, breaking a finger, I honestly say go for it. Then last up on this path, we have the Mega Dozer. The Mega Dozer allows us to do extra damage with our charge, which makes it now do 20, which is another thing that I asked for, so you know what? Thank you, game. But the bigger thing to it is that you can now dash through enemies even if you get hit. Now, this isn't very much of a suggestible thing just because Drill Sergeant is somewhat of a glass cannon, and especially if you're playing on hard and nightmare, you definitely don't want to get hit, but it just kind of adds to that power dynamic that Drill Sergeant has, where you don't want to get hit by a chompy and then stop midway through, especially if you're hitting a large group of enemies. So this upgrade's just kind of there to make sure you can kind of fully go through it, and even if you're going to take a little bit of damage, at least it's not going to be a shitload. Then for our last two, we have the Archaean Armor and Future Cannon. Archaean Armor is his standard soul gem that gives him more resilience. This is nice because, like I said before, Drill Sergeant is somewhat of a glass cannon, taking a lot of damage, and since a lot of his moves are somewhat up close, and you're gonna be up close most of the time, why not get some armor just to make sure it hurts a little less. Then for his wow pow, we have the Future Cannon, which gives a little green orb to shoot out that does 10 damage instead of 4. Now, to be honest with you, I actually do like it. Sadly, this wow pow doesn't really benefit from having a faster cannon, since it'll still shoot roughly at the same time, but it doing 10 damage and also having a burst option with it, meaning that it hits multiple enemies at a time if they're grouped up enough, it genuinely actually makes it viable. But for the same reasons that I gave the other upgrade for the auto aim cannon, it hurts the fuck out of your finger. But I would be lying if I said I didn't like it. With that, that has been Drill Sergeant. We have taken a look at every single one of his moves and overall design, and now it's time for me to give you my rating. And if I had to hit the keynotes on Drill Sergeant, he's a ranged character that can also fight pretty up close. I think all his upgrades actually do add on a pretty decent amount to his kit, and is overall a lot of fun. So, with that, I'm gonna have to give Drill Sergeant an honest 5 out of 5. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Honestly Rated. Let me know what you think about Drill Sergeant in the comments below. Don't forget to tell me what Skylines you want to see next. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to see more, click that playlist on the screen. And if you want to see more Honestly Rated in the future, these come out every single Saturday, but subscribing will make sure you never miss out on one. With that though, I hope to see you and everybody else in the next one. Peace.